Hello and welcome to Santa Cruz for Bernie's endorsement forum. My name is Brett Garrett and I'm the convener of Santa Cruz for Bernie. Let's begin with a land acknowledgement. Um, the land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Awaswas-speaking Yupi tribe. The Ama Mutsun tribal band, comprised of the descendants of indigenous people taken to missions Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during Spanish colonization of the Central Coast, is today working hard to restore traditional stewardship practices on these lands and heal from historical trauma. Tonight's forum is to help us prepare for and hopefully influence the upcoming election on Tuesday, November 3rd. Ballots will be mailed just 47 days from now. This election will decide many important issues, including a new mayor for Santa Cruz, trustees for the Pajaro Valley School District and Cabrillo College, protections for our marine sanctuary, and a proposed countywide sales tax that many of us might not even know about yet. Um, we've invited local candidates to complete the candidate questionnaires. And if you want to view the responses, please see the link in the chat. Has that? This election will also be a pivotal decision point for national and statewide offices, including United States Congress and a new governor for California. Most of these races have been narrowed down to a simple choice of Democrat versus a Republican. And you probably don't need our advice on the difference between those Democrat versus Republican offices. Those races won't be our focus tonight, but I do need to mention them because they are incredibly important for the well-being of our country and our state, as you know. They're also a reason that I plan to vote very early in this election. I'm somewhat paranoid that the mega election deniers will throw up roadblocks, making it more difficult to vote as election day approaches. And our best defense may be to vote early. I'm hopeful that tonight's forum will help provide the information we all need to make up our minds early and be able to submit our ballots early. As I said, we won't be touching on the Democrat versus Republican races, but we will touch on some state contests that may be less obvious. And we'll also do a rundown on the 14 statewide ballot initiatives. So to summarize tonight's agenda, part one will be local offices, hearing from candidates for Santa Cruz Mayor, Pajaro Valley Unified School District trustee candidates, and candidates for Cabrillo trustees. Part two will be a discussion of local ballot initiatives with brief presentations by Pauline Seals and Supervisor Monica Martinez. Part three will be open discussion of these local offices and issues. Um, and then part four will give a very um, quick presentation regarding selected statewide contests, including Insurance Commissioner, Superintendent of Public Education, and the Board of Equalization. Part five will be the statewide initiatives. And then finally, we'll have part six, the wrap up and discussion of all those things. So anyway, in part one, we'll provide an opportunity for the candidates to introduce themselves, beginning with Amy Chen Mills, who is running for Santa Cruz mayor. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement, plus a few minutes to answer questions, and finally a 1 minute closing statement. I'll be acting as timekeeper, so make sure you can see me. Let's see, yeah, so the timer will look like this. It'll be in my window. So if you can see my window, if you can see my face, you'll be able to see the timer when it comes up. And if anyone of you candidates if you have trouble seeing the timer, let me know. I can holler out a 20-second warning, but I won't do that unless you've asked me to do that. So Santa Cruz for Bernie members will be invited to vote on the endorsements to be made by Santa Cruz for Bernie. We've got to decide. So we need your vote. You may vote anytime at the link that is going to be posted soon in the chat. Um, And I see Chris is asking about the billionaire's tax. Yes, we'll be voting on that. You'll be able to vote on every statewide proposition. It's a fairly long ballot tonight, covering a lot of issues. So I'll put a link to the voting in just a moment. And without further ado, let me introduce our membership secretary and longtime organizer extraordinaire of Santa Cruz for Bernie. This is Jeffrey Smedberg, who is going to introduce and interview the candidates.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Okay, Amy, hi. So,
Hi.
so what we're going to do is give you 2 minutes for an opening statement. I got a couple of questions, and then you'll have a minute to wrap up. Okay,
Okay, thank
you ready
you.
to start?
Yeah,
Okay, you're on.
thank you. I think most of you actually know me, some of you quite well, but I will reintroduce myself. My name is Amy Chen Mills. I'm running for mayor of Santa Cruz, and I have a long history of progressive activism in this community, from organizing climate strikes in 2019 to organizing most recently the Get the Flock Out campaign, which has become an anti-ALPR campaign as well, and a data privacy campaign for our city in the form of my campaign for mayor. I also worked with Barbara Riverwoman to protect the benchlands and try to promote Indigenous stewardship at the benchlands so that an amphitheater wasn't built there or other like forms of parks and rec hardscaping, which are now all up at the top of the benchlands. And I ran for supervisor in 2022, and I think some of you know me from that time. I have the best people on my campaign team, just like I had the best people on my radio show team, including Mei Ling, who is currently on this call. And I have folks who I believe have really helped to shape policy in our city, whether or not they were on council or outside of council. And that includes, well, Chris Crone, who is here on the call, and John Hall, who has helped to promote local preference ordinances to make sure that local people get housed in our affordable housing. Joy Schendeldecker, who has worked on the Cruise Hotel with many others to make sure we had at least one affordable housing unit for that hotel. Um, and just people in general who care about people who are working class, people who are poor, people who are unhoused. And I want to take this fight to this mayoral race, which now has someone who's taking open AI money, who is taking Coinbase money and Meta money, along with the thousands, it seems like, of real estate folks and developers who are also donating to Ryan Coonerty's campaign. Our campaign is
Okay.
grassroots. We
Yeah,
are
that
not
was the
taking.
2 minute dinger, by the way.
Okay, I cannot see because I'm on my phone. So,
Oh no, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Do you
but
want me to give you a
you
warning
could
before?
just jump in.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
great. So I'm going to ask you a question with you get a minute to answer this one. As mayor, what will you be able to do to get money out of politics locally? Okay.
Well, one thing that I'm already doing is accepting the campaign expenditure cap of $52,266. And I have invited Ryan Coonerty to also accept that cap. He has said that he will not because he has to counter my misinformation. I said, well, I'm happy to correct misinformation. Tell me what that is. And I did not get an email reply back. The incentive for accepting the expenditure cap is like a $300 credit towards like your website posting about your campaign. So that is hardly enough credit for accepting the cap. There should be much more that the city does to support a candidate who accepts the expenditure cap. I also think we can look at actually publicly financing elections, giving everyone like a few thousand to start, or, we'd have to work out the details and have a community forum that is sponsored by the city so residents can come and not by some private entity or establishment entity.
Okay. Thank you. Another question with a minute to answer. What are your thoughts on ranked choice voting in Santa Cruz instead of council districts?
My understanding about ranked choice voting, especially after seeing the way that these districts were drawn to actually disempower voters in the beach flats and lower ocean area, and connect them to like the Upper West Side, for Pete's sake, which also was a project of my opponent. I think it would be highly preferable because my understanding is that more voters are represented in ranked choice voting, and the actual outcome of ranked choice voting is more reflective of what the voters want because they can have a first choice, a second choice, and a third choice. And so if it's not the first choice, the second choice is bumped up in ranked choice voting so that we actually have more of a say in who we get for the council. These districts are not fair. They were drawn unfairly through backroom deals, and that needs to be pointed out. And that's why we're having a hard time getting folks elected from the progressive side. So elect me mayor, endorse me and help me, and we will change that.
Okay, thank you. Because we didn't expect a whole lot of people would want to come to this forum, but there's a lot of people and a lot of candidates. So unfortunately, it's kind of short. So I'm going to ask you to give us your 1 minute closing statement.
My 1 minute closing statement is that I am a candidate for the people, and where we've neglected the people is in focusing on renters, focusing on renter protections, focusing on those who are vulnerable that are under attack from the administration, and being very serious about it to the point of making sure we're not bringing in technology to surveil them, and also being very transparent about what we're doing in the city. I've already been posting, agendas for council meetings on my social media, telling people what's up, what's coming, and I intend to go ahead and continue to do that, to have Monday council meetings, which pre-council meetings, which were started by Gary Patton, and let people know what's happening. Because honestly, like I said at my launch party, I'm going to need all of you to be a part of city governance and show up for those measures that we want to get passed at council, because we're going to need 4 votes still.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amy, for showing up and speaking to us. And we are going to, at about 8 o'clock, we are going to have a period of time when we're going to have some more open discussion about the candidates that we've heard from. And we can't keep the candidates away. This meeting is open to the public, but during that period of time, we're going to ask that candidates, you've had your chance to speak before then, that you don't speak in a discussion of your own candidacy. Okay, thank you, Amy. We're going to go on to the Pajaro Valley Unified School District, and there are candidates running in 4 districts, areas 1, 4, 5, and 7, and several of those candidates are here with us. Okay, as we continue Spotlight, so I'm going to ask everybody to have a 2-minute opening statement. Let's start with you, Andrew. You get 2 minutes opening statement.
Yeah. Thanks for the invitation and for giving me a little bit of time. My name's Andrew Goldenkrantz. I'm a candidate in Trustee Area 1, which is Aptos from Park Avenue right down through Corralitos, down to the Watsonville city limits on that side of the freeway. I'm running because the district's got a whole host of problems that get in the way of their ability to focus on students and what they need. The district announced last fall that they were cutting back. They were doing a bunch of layoffs, including a lot of the academic support people that had been hired through COVID. And they never presented a coherent plan of how those students and families were going to get served. They are talking about closing schools, but they have not presented. I think what they need to do in that case is really flip the script and talk about what kind of schools people want to attend. So, for example, the way I would do it on the school closures is maybe maybe we should focus on locating schools a little bit further away from where the pesticides are being sprayed so that we can have a choice of schools that kids want to go to rather than just dealing with the pain and disruption of what it means to close a school down. The budget situation is real. The budget calamities are real. There's a real lack of trust between board, staff, and what's going on in the community. The board wisely chose not to put a bond measure on the ballot, even though they need the money for construction because they just don't have the confidence of the community right now. So my feeling is what I want to do is help restore some sense of order and sensibility and level-headedness on the board. I've worked with large budgets, 9 and 10 digit budgets. I know how to crack open a complex budget like Barrow Valley and put it back together, so I can help bring some good fact finding to that. I've been in education for 37 years. I was the kid that they would send to teach evolution, climate change, and sex ed to their kids, and never
That
got
was
any
your two
pushback
minutes.
on that one. So I hope that you will support my candidacy as somebody who can get stuff done. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. Also running for the open seat in Area 1 is Mei Ling Obinata. So, Mei Ling, would you like to take your 2 minutes?
Thank you, Jeffrey, and thanks everybody at Santa Cruz for Bernie for giving us all the time to address you. And I'm running for everyone, as is Andrew, and I'm running on a reform platform. So one thing is that, let's say, if you love something, part of love is accountability. So we may love the district, but just like when you have a friend who maybe is not a little impaired, maybe don't give them the keys to the car, right? Or put in some accountability. So that's one thing. Part part of something that's, I guess, that is remarkable to me is the lack of a strategic plan. And I think there's a lot of disagreement about money and other decisions in the district because there is no such plan. So if you go to the grocery store and you want to buy bread or so on, you have to, I mean, you have a shopping list, right? So I want the district to have that as well. So, okay, I know I have 2 minutes.
Uh,
Um,
okay.
anyway, so I'll continue. I grew up in the district. I went to Mar Vista Elementary. I went to Aptos Junior High. I went to Aptos High School. I went to Cabrillo. I went to UC Santa Cruz. And I have a law degree from
Okay.
Mitchell Hamlin School of Law, that was covered by full tuition, but my education is the result of me attending the PVUSD. So I would love to give back.
Thank you for your 2 minutes. Okay, let's move on uh, to District 5. Alicia Jimenez, would you like to take your 2 minutes?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brett and Jeffrey and Santa Cruz for Bernie for inviting me to this forum. I very much appreciate it. I decided to run very last minute, and one of the reasons was because I just retired from PVUSD in June. And as I was thinking about that, and as I have more freedom of time, I was really thinking about how I can give back to the community. And I realized that this was such a unique opportunity for me to give back in a very meaningful way. I grew up in Mexico. I immigrated when I was 8 years old, came to PVUSD, and have been here since then. I did go to college from PVUSD. I went to Smith College in Massachusetts and had a wonderful experience. And when I was looking for a job, at some point I decided that I really wanted to work for PVUSD. and I was able to start working with them in 2000 as an executive assistant to the board and the superintendent, and I learned a lot about. Since then, I have been attending board meetings until about 2020. I attended board meetings in closed session, and I was able to see a lot of the discussions that took place. So I bring 25 years of institutional knowledge to this process. I feel like there is an opportunity for to change someone a little bit of the tenor of this of the board. There's a lot of wonderful work that is being done at the school district that is not getting much attention, that deserves to get attention. Our students are being exposed to great opportunities as well. I think it's also an opportunity to really highlight with the community the good work that's being done. There'll always be challenges, but I feel like there's so many opportunities also to celebrate and move forward with respect, so that our students have a wonderful opportunity to grow. Thank you. Was that 2 minutes?
It was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh my God, I felt I couldn't, but I can. I'm like, oh, it's such a long time.
Okay. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I would like to invite for Area 7, Mads Rail Muto. 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for having me this evening. Mads Muto, I'm a PBUSD graduate. I am now a parent of 2 young children in the district. So I've really come full circle. I really started getting involved when I was advocating for my child with special needs. And that really exposed me to some of the challenges that the district is facing in terms of delivering services and the fight that is needed to get kids the education that they both deserve and are required to have. I'm a big believer in public education and high quality public education. And I agree with a lot of what's already been said in terms of our district being distracted and not focusing enough on what matters, which is our students. I'm running to bring some of my experience in the district, but also my background to the board. I'm currently chair of the special education committee for the district, the advisory committee. I'm also a member of the Sustainable Schools Advisory Committee. That's the committee Andrew mentioned that's looking at school consolidation closures. And I agree that as part of the work that that committee is doing, it's really to focus on what is that ideal school? What do we want that to look like? The district right now has a real trust problem. The community, certainly our staff, I think there's a real problem right now with morale. Staff not feeling included in decisions and valued for what they contribute. And one of the things that I would like to bring is really a focus on the staff and those that are closest to our students and elevating them. Thank you.
Thank you. That was 2 minutes. Appreciate that. Okay, Misty, you're on. 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Misty Navarro, and I'm currently the appointed incumbent for Area 7. I applied for the board in October of 2024. I had been paying attention to what was going on in the district for a while. I am an Aptos resident of the last 16 years, and I have 2 kids that are in the PVUSD school district, both attending Aptos High. And I looked at our schools and I compared it to my education growing up, and I thought we should be doing better. And that's how I got involved. I am a product of the public school education. My mom was a teenage mom when she had me, and she was a single parent that raised me. I went to 14, 15 different schools before I started high school. I got a full scholarship to college and then to medical school, and then became an emergency medicine physician. And although I'm a parent in Aptos right now, I grew up like the kids from Watsonville and Pajaro, and I spent the last 17 years working in Salinas with the population that is mostly South County. And so when this opportunity dropped in my lap, I thought I was uniquely poised because I'm able to speak Spanish, understand the community of South County and Watsonville, but also my Aptos community. I noticed that my friends who are parents that we had raised our kids together. They had played sports together, were pulling their kids out of Pajaro Valley School District. And their concerns were safety. Their concerns were academic rigor and whether or not their kids were going to be prepared for the future. So that's how I came into this work. I mean, I have always strived to mentor young folks. I don't believe that you can dream what you can't see. So I've always advocated for mentorship and bringing back folks from the community that have succeeded so that our students understand the real possibilities that exist for them. I have, I'm not a teacher, but I have, as a physician, I know that if I don't have the firsthand expertise, that my job is to go out there and talk to the people who actually understand what is going on. I have had a crash course in school finances over the last year and a half, which is far more complex than most people seem to understand.
Thank you. That was your 2 minutes.
Is that 2 minutes already? Oh my goodness.
Yes, it was. So anything you couldn't say in your first 2 minutes, you can put in your closing. Okay.
I don't think that was 2 minutes.
Now,
if any candidate has trouble seeing the timer, please tell me to give you a 10-second or 20-second warning or whatever you want.
I didn't actually see any timer, but thanks.
Okay, yeah, it's on my. It's. If you see
why
my
don't you
face,
just
you
speak?
should see the timer. It's.
Why
right
don't you
there.
just get a habit of speaking up?
But do you want?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
say
what
2
warning do
minutes or
people want?
20
15
seconds.
seconds or 20 seconds?
20 seconds. Yeah. Okay. We
Okay.
skipped over area 4. The incumbent Daniel Dodge Jr. I thought he was going to be here, but I don't see him. He's the incumbent. The challenger is Heriberto Estrada, and Heriberto is working tonight and couldn't come, so he gave me a statement to read, which I will do now. Good evening, everyone. My name is Heriberto Estrada, and while I am unable to be here tonight because of a work commitment, I'm grateful to have my statement read on my behalf. Thank you to Santa Cruz for Bernie for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself and share why I'm running for the PVUSD trustee in Area 4. I'm running because I believe working class people deserve a real choice in government, not just a seat at the table, but the opportunity to help lead. I grew up in Watsonville surrounded by working families, farm workers, and immigrant families who work hard every day to build a better life for their kids. I've seen how hard people work and how sometimes their voices can still go unheard. For the past 3 years, I've regularly attended PVUSD school board meetings, sometimes staying late into the night. I've listened to students, parents, and educators and spoken up when I felt their concerns weren't being heard. That experience is what motivated me to run. This is my first campaign, and I'm not a career politician. I'm just someone from Watsonville who cares about our community and believes our families deserve a stronger voice in the decisions affecting our schools. That is why I'm proud to seek the support of Santa Cruz for Bernie. I believe every student deserves a good public education, no matter where they come from or what their family makes. As a trustee, I want to make sure our schools have the resources they need, our teachers are supported, and our students have real opportunities after graduation. I also want working families to feel like they actually have a voice in our schools. A lot of families are busy working and don't always have the time to go to meetings or speak up. I want to make sure their concerns are still heard and represented. I want families to know that their voices matter, not just during re-elections, but throughout the entire year. My campaign is about accountability, transparency, and representation. I want a school board that listens before making decisions, explains how public resources are being used, and measures success by whether or our students and families are actually better off. I believe the power of working people coming together to demand better from our institutions. That is what Bernie Sanders has fought for throughout his career, and is the kind of leadership I want to bring to PVUSD. I would be honored to have the support of Santa Cruz for Bernie. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for continuing to organize for working families, students, and communities across Santa Cruz County. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you tonight, but I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share why I'm running. Thank you. Okay, so he might have gotten a little extra time, but that's his opening and closing statements. Okay, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions here. I'm going to start with Area 5, Alicia.
Yeah, and these are
Alicia.
1 minute, are they? Or
Yeah.
tell us.
Yeah, these are 1 minute. Okay. Controversies among board members get in the news too frequently about Pajaro Valley District. Ethnic studies, firing and rehiring the superintendent. How would you improve the working relationships on the board?
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I actually feel that it has to start from being respectful and being very of the work that is taking place at PVUSD by the staff that is doing the work. I think it has to be, I need to be very respectful. We all need to be respectful about that. And I think having conversations professionally and with kindness is a good way of starting to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Alicia. Brett, you're not going to be putting your timer up? Okay. Mads, we'll go to you next. Let me know if you need me to repeat the question.
I do not. Thank you. Um, my professional background is in public policy, communications, and stakeholder engagement. So have spent much of my career navigating complex issues and bringing people with very different perspectives together. Um, I think disagreement is healthy and dysfunction is not. Um, and so, what my experience has taught me is different tactics in de-escalation, um, finding common ground, but also listening. I think one of the things that I see a lot right now in the dysfunction is a board and community members who struggle to actually listen to each other. And some of that transparency is
20
further
seconds.
lack of transparency is driving more of that tension. So I would like to encourage greater transparency, but I also want to listen and use some of my de-escalation experience um, to serve the board.
Thank you, Mads. Misty.
I like Mads actually have an extensive amount of experience dealing with chaos and controversy as an emergency physician. And unfortunately, until you're actually on the board and dealing with the situation, it's a lot easier from the outside to see what you would and would not do. And at the end of the day, all we can really do is control ourselves and our own behavior, and we have no control over other people. So I think bringing, respectability, and I've pushed for having a code of conduct to our board, just to have some basic decorum and respect and not be name calling and making our boardroom a hostile environment for people in which to come.
Okay. Thank you. Andrew, would you like to weigh in on the question?
Yeah, thanks. A couple things here. I do think we need kind of a code of conduct, kind of code of ethics in terms of how board members treat each other. But I think the main issue is that when stuff comes to the board, it's not quite ready for prime time. They're bringing in proposals that are not completely finished, and therefore inviting loud and acrimonious debate. The experience that I come from is all of that work takes place behind the scenes, building seats at the table for folks, doing that careful listening that you've heard about before, in a way so that by the time it gets to the board, it is much closer to being a finished proposal than it is now. And I think that sort of process of how
20
to
seconds.
maintain your idealism and also get stuff done is really important. This district needs to kind of get on board. They had their first discussion of student achievement in 3 years within the last month or two, which is kind of abominable. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Mei Ling.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so in terms of conflict management, I've actually done it in various jobs, including when I was a civil rights investigator. I investigated allegations of, say, employment discrimination. That includes things like sexual harassment. I also settled those cases, so I would literally be going between rooms from, let's say, someone alleged that there was sexual harassment, and in the other room, there'd be someone who purportedly did it. I would have to find a way to meet, to help them make a compromise. So I think that conflict management skills
15 seconds.
which I have, I can certainly deploy, but also because there's not a strategic plan, there is a lot of unnecessary conflict because we don't know what we're driving towards.
Okay, thank you, Mei-Ling. Okay, next question. Should ethnic studies primarily teach students about culture and historical contributions, or should students also examine racism, colonialism, discrimination, power, and social movements? Where would you draw the line? Let's start with Mads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important to learn about all of the above. It's so important for our students to understand not only where they come from and see themselves, but to understand that broader context. I think one of the things when I think back my education here, we didn't learn enough about what happened and has happened over the years in the Pajaro Valley, in Santa Cruz and Monterey. So I think it's important that education be holistic. And I know there's been a lot of controversy around this program, but so far the feedback has been positive for the most part. And so it's really looking to continue that.
Okay, thank you. Misty.
So ethnic studies was one of the things when I first came on the board that was a big issue. And just like everything that I approach, I get information before I make a decision. So I met with the founder of our ethnic studies curriculum locally because there was a lot of concern from our Jewish community about whether anti-Semitism was being taught in our schools. And once I actually delved into it and realized that the Fields framework didn't involve any of the topics that were concerning to our Jewish community, I therefore went and supported it. I 100% believe that we have so much history in this community from which to teach our students, and everyone's experience is important. And we have tons of experience of marginalized communities in this community that we can learn and teach our students about.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Andrew, you're up.
Yeah, thanks. I think the answer is you want both. You want to honor kids' traditions and histories and where they're from, and you also want to be honest about the complexity of the world and some of the messiness that's involved. I think that you generally want to start from common ground. I had the privilege of working for a district where I had 37 home languages in my school, and so we had to start with, where are you from, and tell me about your people, in a way that we could find things to appreciate and honor before we get to resolving the conflict. And I think the important bottom line is that all students, Muslim students, Jewish students, Latino students, Filipino students, whatever, all the different slices
15
of the
seconds.
beautiful pie in Pajaro Valley, is that everybody feels safe and welcome in the classroom. And that's the bottom line for me.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Mei-Ling.
Yeah, all the above. I think that history, I mean, it can be a fascinating subject, especially if taught accurately. And I think that we are very fortunate to have an amazing history. So telling it well and allowing students to fall in love with it, I think that's super important. And I think also the fact that it's teacher centered in the way that it's deployed currently in the PBUSD. That's an important feature because it lets our teachers be fully engaged and makes for a really rich experience for our students.
Okay, thank you. And Alicia.
Thank you. That is such a great question. And, I've been through this, the controversy with the board and through it. And it's very important. I feel like, just like everyone else, I feel that we do have to learn both. We have to learn of the contributions of every people, every community here. One of the things that I'm always amazed about is like, for example, just talking about arts, okay? Just talking about arts. I'm learning about classic classic artists, but there are many of them are European. And I'm here thinking about what happened with the Latin American artists, just about that. I have so much I have so much pride for the work that Latin American artists have contributed to the world, and I don't see them anywhere. I don't see them reflected in our curriculum, and it is concerning because it's not just about all the challenges that we have overcome. It is all the beauty that we have contributed, and that has to also come forward. It has to be taught. We have to be proud of that, not just of the struggles and the wins and the battles, but of the
Yeah.
beauty. And
Sorry, I
I
forgot
want
to
to
give
come
the
back to that.
warning.
Okay. So thank you so much. I can see your
Yeah, it
clock
ran,
too, Brett. But I
it's gone negative.
so I
Sorry.
yeah, I think it's students deserve to learn who their ancestors are, where they come from, and the history and that they have lived through. And I'm glad that at PVUSD they have the opportunity to do that right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. Okay, one last question, another minute, and we'll start with you, Andrew. How can the divide in the district between Wattsville and Aptos be resolved uh, or minimized?
Yeah, so there is, I think the important thing is making sure that everybody's got a seat at the table. Um, there is a balance in District 1 where you're getting elected by people in largely Aptos and Corralitos, but then having to represent the people in the whole district. And I think the most important thing is what's best for students. Now, let me say a couple things just about some of the Aptos Watsonville stuff. I think that maintaining equity should be based around building opportunity rather than taking it away. So for example, when they cut back on the 7-period day in Aptos High, I think that was a mistake. I think they should be expanding the 7-period day to all 3 high schools.
15
When they
seconds.
so when they cut back on the marine biology trips to Catalina Island, I think they should be expanding those opportunities rather than taking them away. And I think that's the way that I would try to govern.
Thank you, Andrew. Mei Ling.
So, yeah, Aptos and Watsonville are not, obviously, they're not the same. I grew up going into Watsonville for chicharron and carnitas or whatever, right? So I'm a student of the PVOSD, but also just I'm a resident of the PVOSD, and I understand how there can be this divide. And I think that part of any strategic plan has to emphasize access and equality for people in the PVOSD so that people feel as though we are hearing them and we are understanding how we're allocating resources of the district in an equitable way.
Okay, thank you. Alicia.
I have probably gone through about 3 reorganization proposals in my tenure at PVUSD, and it always saddens me because it is such an opportunity. It is actually desegregation. They want to segregate people, and it is not really the way to work. Not in our time, not in our community. It is a very diverse community. Um, there's a lot of emphasis on equity throughout the schools, making sure that what's available in one school can be available at other schools. And it is a hard topic, I think, to talk about. But I think that the one of the
15 seconds.
least things we can do is talk about reorganization, because it is a division. And instead of trying to learn and grow from each other and grow with each other, we are trying to separate one another. And I think in this time, that is just unacceptable. We have to be able to learn from each other and understand that we are working to make sure every student in every one of the schools has access to equitable systems.
Thank you, Alicia. So Mads, take this question on.
Thank you. I think it starts by rejecting the idea that this has to be a Watsonville versus Aptos thing. One of the district's greatest strengths is our diversity. Our students benefit from learning alongside people with different backgrounds, cultures, languages, and experiences. But that only works if everyone in the community feels valued and has equitable access to opportunities. So as a trustee, I would focus on listening and building relationships across the district, as I already do, and make sure decisions are being made with the communities, but keep bringing us back to the fact that we are one district and we need to benefit all of our children. And I agree that it's
15
about
seconds.
building up our communities, not taking away.
Okay, thank you, Mads. Misty, get on.
So I echo some of what Mads is saying. I think some of this Watsonville versus Aptos is a little bit contrived because half the students actually at Aptos are from Watsonville. And so one of the things that we've done as a board, and the one thing that we actually do all agree on, is bringing equity to all of our schools. Currently, Aptos is the only school that has 7 periods. We looked at expanding the other ones. We didn't have $2.5 million extra dollars to make sure everybody had 7 periods. So we are trying to make sure that we align our schedules so that we can bring access to all of the students to have equal opportunities, expand our CTE pathways, make sure accelerated courses are available to the PV and Aptos High and the Watsonville students. I live in Aptos, but ironically, I represent PV High, and I spend a tremendous amount of time
15
at
seconds.
all of the schools. And I believe that equity is really the key, and making sure that no one school feels like they're getting something less than someone else.
Okay, thank you, Misty. I think I got through everybody on that question, and now we're ready for 1-minute closing statements. And I'm going to start with Mei Ling.
All right. So thanks, everybody. I hope you consider voting for me because we are headed for very, very, very hard times in the PVUSD. And as we make decisions that are basically a type of triage, that means our values have to be at the very forefront. Anything we don't value will go by the wayside. I value equality. I have been involved in social justice and education endeavors for more than the last 30 years. I have taken students to the Black College Expo in Oakland so that they can see what college can be for people who look like themselves. So please
Thank you,
think.
Mei Ling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mei Ling.
Sorry, I forgot the.
Um, Alicia, your 1-minute closing.
Thank you so much. I hope I can count on your support. I am running to bring stability and focus and effective governance to the board. Every student should be able to feel safe as they work to achieve their dreams. And I want to bring a little bit of that to the board, making sure that students have a sense of belonging, that staff has a sense of belonging. And I feel very honored to have the opportunity to serve and continue giving back to my community in this manner. I am, like I mentioned, I am a product of PVUSD, and I am very much invested in this community, and I want our youth to have access to the best educational options. I am very happy to see a lot of what's happening at PVUSD in terms of options for our students, and I want to promote more of that. Thank you so much for your time here.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. Mads, your closing statement.
Thank you again for the time this evening and for considering my candidacy for your endorsement. I'm running because I believe in public education and in what PVUSD can be. Getting there requires a board that listens to educators and families, asks hard questions, and always puts students first. I'm incredibly proud to have earned the endorsement of the teachers union. To me, that reflects the kind of partnership I want to bring to the board, where the people doing the work every day have a real voice in the decisions that affect them and students. I want to be a trustee who brings greater accountability and transparency to the district. I want to help the district communicate more effectively with educators and families and make sure that the community feels heard. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Mads. Misty.
So, as the one person, other than maybe Alicia Jimenez, in this forum that has actually been doing this work for the last almost 2 years, these challenges are great. We are facing a structural deficit, and we almost went into a qualified status this past December. We had to make some really difficult structural decisions in order to save our budget and live within our means. They were really painful, but I believe in this district. And unfortunately, as Alicia said, we have not lauded the accomplishments that we've made in this district, which is investing in teachers with a letters program, putting $30,000 in their pockets over the next 2 years. We are working on our curriculum. Our students are not succeeding. Our kids are doing math at 18% can do math at grade level, 25% can read at grade level. We need to raise the bar up so that we can have opportunities for our students. And that is the work that I do. I come to this work knowing that it's hard, and like everything, I approach it with data and a logic mind, but understanding that real people are affected by this.
Okay, thank you, Misty. Andrew, your closing.
Thank you for the time. If you're, I believe I'm the only candidate in the field who's got direct classroom experience. I've spent decades in the classroom and as a site administrator. I can pick apart a $300 million budget and put it back together again to know where the money is. I've been on local community boards that relate to provision of affordable housing, delivery of healthcare through Santa Cruz Community Health, delivery of a broad array of community services through community bridges. And I can get phone calls returned from legislators and state agencies in terms of being able to meet the budget demands. So if you're looking for somebody who can hit the ground running, I'm hoping that I can earn your vote. Thank you very much for the time.
Okay, well, thank you all for candidates for the Pajo Valley Unified School District, Area 1, Andrew Goldenkrantz and Mei-Ling Obinata. Area 4, Heriberto Estrada, whose statement I read. Area 5, Alicia Jimenez, and Area 7, Misty Navarro and Mads Realmuto. So thank you all. And the next race is the Cabrillo College Trustees. And we have with us tonight Karen Cogswell. This is Area 6. Also, Melissa Ailes Barnicoat. Also running in this race is Benjamin Finke, who can't come, and I will be reading a statement on his behalf. So let's see, we're going to start out with 2-minute opening statements. And Karen, why don't you start off?
Great. Thank you all so much for the invitation. Happy to be speaking with you all tonight. I have been serving on the Cabrillo Foundation Board for over 12 years and have also am on the Scholarship Committee. I'm past president of the President Circle Committee and also was a founding member of Women's Educational Success, which is an emergency grant program for female students who are in danger of dropping out of school because of a lost bus pass or bald tires. It's been extremely successful. I'm the daughter of two educators from Southern California and went through the education system here pre-Prop 13. And it was unparalleled. And unfortunately, we are not going to go back to those days. And Cabrillo is subject to, of course, state funding because we don't have the tax base that some of the community colleges do over the hill. And I believe that we can maintain and excel in our educational pursuits even without that kind of money because we have the most outstanding faculty and a great staff and strong unions, and I want to support all of them. We're facing a huge demographic shift. There are not as many children being born, and they're not going to be available for enrollment. Plus, the threat of AI. It's out there. It's also got a lot of promise, but the students are acutely aware of the threat to their employment prospects that this presents. So I believe we need to take a holistic look at the curricula, at the workforce development, at what employers in the area want, what they are not finding in the current workforce, and align those needs. There can be no better argument for that than the great news out of the Watsonville campus of Cabrillo, where they saw a huge increase in enrollment and in success pass rate because
20
they
seconds.
realized what the students wanted. They brought it to the campus, and enrollment went up and achievement went up. And I would like to see that across all of the Cabrillo curricula. And I believe we can get there with shared governance and cool heads and clear vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Melissa, please
Good evening.
introduce yourself. 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm running for the Cabrillo College Board of Trustees because I believe deeply in the role community colleges play in creating opportunity, not only for students, but for families and our entire community. My career has centered on workforce development, education, healthcare, and creating pathways that connect people to meaningful careers. Through that work, I've been seen and acknowledged how powerful education can be when students can clearly see the connection between what they're learning and where it can take them. I also understand that students today are navigating a very, very different world. Many are working while going to school. They may be caring for children or family members. They're dealing with a very high cost of living in our community, and they need an institution that understands those realities while still holding high expectations for what they can achieve. For me, serving as a trustee means asking some really fundamental questions. Are we helping students succeed in the world that exists today? Are we listening to our faculty, staff, students, employers, and our community? Are we being responsible stewards of public resources? And are we preparing Cabrillo not just for the next few years, but for the next generation? I would bring a collaborative approach, a workforce and community perspective, and a willingness to ask thoughtful questions and listen carefully before making decisions. Cabrillo is an incredibly important community institution. I'd be honored to help strengthen it, ensure that opportunity remains at the center of its mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. So I'm going to read a statement that was submitted by Ben Finke, who's also running for this Area 6 seat on the Cabrillo College Trustee Board. Hello, Santa Cruz for Bernie. My name is Benjamin Finke. I am a candidate for Cabrillo College Trustee Area 6. I apologize that I can't be with you tonight as I am helping to take care of my grandmother, which I feel is a perfect exemplification of my personality and intentions with running for office. I want to serve the public to ensure that our students and community thrive together. As a bus operator for Santa Cruz Metro, what I do every day is accommodate for people's needs, lend compassion and patience, and discern what can and can't be done while communicating plainly and effectively so that my passengers understand my perspective. I see this as a perfect microcosm of what I expect as a governing board member, to fundamentally treat all people and concerns as equal and valuable. to strive for decisions and actions which lead to best outcomes, and to honestly and rationally differentiate good ideas which are achievable from those which aren't. I believe in supporting our students, whether it's housing, on-site services, counseling, or well-equipped classrooms. Our community coming together to provide the very best opportunities to those who come to Cabrillo is a beautiful thing. We are stronger together, and I'm hoping to receive your endorsement so that I may have the opportunity to communicate with the public and advocate for our future. In solidarity, thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask you a few questions. We'll start with Melissa, and it's a 1-minute answer for this question. Describe your commitment to Cabrillo's Pajaro Valley campuses and students.
My commitment is to really work with the institution. I think it's such an important engine for the community. I think it's, my work shows me that education paired with workforce pathways and community needs need to be genuinely connected. My commitment is to work with the institution to ensure that that happens. My commitment is also to, I think every candidate's talking about the fiscal struggles that we have within the state, and certainly our country this year. And my commitment is to really look at those opportunities and looking at the financial structure, listening to the concerns of all that, are impacted by those struggles,
10 seconds.
and advocate on the, for the part of everyone that will affect.
Okay, thank you, Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next question. I'll start with you. No, did you, Karen? I didn't
Karen answer that?
let you answer that question. I'm getting a little mixed up here.
Sure. I believe I'm aligned with the current president, Jen Capps, in looking to expand the offerings in Watsonville. Once the campus was able to retake back rooms that they had sublet and open up anatomy classes, chemistry classes, biology classes, so the students didn't have to travel to Aptos for those. That's where you saw the enrollment jump. People want to, be able to go locally, and that's very important. So I see expanding that. They have a lovely construction arts facility there that's huge with heavy equipment. We need much more of that so the students can get the training that they need and the work experience that they need right in their own community. And I believe we have the capacity there. We certainly have the faculty there to make that available to more students. And it shows in the enrollment jumps and the achievement jumps.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next question, and we'll start with you, Karen, again, 1 minute. How should Cabrillo respond to its labor bargaining units seeking salaries, benefits, and work assignments that are sustainable for living locally?
Yep, this happens with every coastal community. It's expensive to live here, and salaries are out of whack with what it costs, and we lose faculty and staff to those realities. I believe that there needs to be, again, shared governance and a look at the cost of living increases that are available for, at least for now, from the state, and allow those to flow through to the faculty so that we don't lose them to the over-the-hill institutions that can, quite frankly, with their tax base, pay a lot more. So, of course, I have not been privy to any of those negotiations, but it's a first that we have come to an impasse with the faculty union and the management, and it has to go to arbitration. So clearly, there needs to be wider lines of communication.
Thank you. Melissa.
Yes, can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. How should Cabrillo respond to its labor bargaining units seeking salaries, benefits, and work assignments that are sustainable for living locally?
Well, I'm a union employer, so full disclosure, I negotiate union contracts as an employer. And I think there is always a way to negotiate a win-win situation with a union. And I think it does have to take into certainly wages. We are an expensive area and we have to be able to compete to hang on to the faculty that we have, and not just in the short term, but in the long term. But within collective bargaining, I think there's always an opportunity to look wholly at many different elements that go into that agreement, and with the goal of a win for the college, but also a win for the faculty, with a prime example of not only retaining faculty, but being able to attract the best faculty to our institution.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. Let's make it 30 seconds. I think you should be able to cover it pretty quickly. And we'll start with you, Melissa. What are your views on the idea of student trustees on the board, and should they have a vote?
Well, I run a cooperative also, and so I'm very much in favor of the voice of the constituents that are affected by things having their voice, certainly on the board. So I would be in favor of students being on the board and having a voice. The decisions that are made affect them, and they represent a very different perspective than other community members or faculty members, and it's an important voice to hear.
Thank you. Karen, on the question of student trustees.
I agree wholeheartedly. We have a student trustee now, we have had for a long time, and their perspective is invaluable. You can't get their viewpoint, their experience, their lived experience from any other source. And I know that the ones that have been trustees have been outstanding. They have just shown up, worked hard, and represented their fellow students beautifully. So I would totally be in favor of retaining that.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Okay, next question. And again, I think 30 seconds might cover it. What do you think about the Cabrillo College name change? Is that still on the table? Go
Who do you
ahead,
want to
Karen.
start? Me?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Well, as I recall, it was moved forward 5 years that they would not take it up. And so I believe there's another couple of years. And whatever happens, if it does come up again, it has to be a much better experience. That was so divisive, so ugly, so hurtful to all parties that we need to come up with a much better process if that should come up again.
Thank you. And Melissa, on the question of the name change.
Yes, I read about it. So I wasn't in the experience of being there, but I certainly read some of the op-eds and views on it. I think whenever you're making a significant change that affects the community, and when a community has such strong feelings about that you really need to be very inclusive in your build up to a decision. And I think you have to include enough voices in that to make the decision. And at the end, I think you do have to make hard decisions, but I think you can do that in a very collaborative way with all of the constituents that have passion about it. And I think that's really important to do.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, we're ready for 1 minute closing statement. And Melissa, why don't you lead off?
Sure, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to participate tonight. It was nice to meet Karen, at least over Zoom, and all of you over Zoom. What draws me to this role is really simple. I believe in Cabrillo, that it can change lives. For some students, it's the first step toward a 4-year degree. For others, it's a pathway into a career, a new skill, or entirely new chapter in their lives. And for our community, Cabrillo is an essential educational and economic resource. I would bring to the board my experience in workforce development, education, healthcare, and building partnerships. But just as importantly, I would bring curiosity, collaboration, and a willingness to listen. If elected, I will keep students at the center of my decisions. I'll ask thoughtful questions, I'll be responsible with the resources entrusted to the college, and I'll work to ensure Cabrillo remains strong, relevant, and accessible for generations to come. I'd be honored to earn your support, and thank you very much for the invitation to join you tonight.
Thank you, Melissa. Karen, 1 minute closing statement.
I also want to thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to get to know you all and Melissa. I built a company here and so needed to bring in all kinds of stakeholders and members of the community, and have had my ear to the ground since living here, first since 1973 to go to UCSC, and then moved back in 1986. So I'm a longtime resident. I also have no aspirations for further office. Serving Cabrillo is all I want to do, and I'm not looking for anything else. So I believe that the collaboration with the community, the students, the
Sorry, the
faculty, the
timer did
unions
not
is
start.
essential. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself.
Okay, well, thank you so much. If we were here in person, we'd give you a round of applause, but everybody's muted, so please, please assume that we're all cheering you for showing up here. Next on our agenda is County Measure E, and we have with us tonight Monica Martinez, supervisor in the 5th District, and Monica has taken chair of the board and also taking the lead on Measure E, and I think I will let you take it from here.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and good evening, everybody. I see some familiar names and faces, but it's also good to see some new folks. As Jeffrey shared, my name is Monica Martinez, and I am currently the chair of the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors. It's a tremendous honor to be in this capacity. And I really want to thank you for the invitation to come speak to you today about something that's incredibly important to me. And it's funny, Jeffrey got a preview of this presentation when I presented to SCIU 521 on Thursday, and his advice was leave out the slides, just talk about why you're passionate about this. I'm like, well, that is really simple for me because, I have spent my entire life dedicated to building and preserving the safety net for people who are left behind. I never imagined that I would someday run for office, being a county supervisor. I love it. It's a great job, but it wasn't what I was aspiring to. I just really wanted to make sure that people who needed help had access to help. I've spent my career, for 10 years. I ran our county's largest health and human services agency, Encompass Community Services. Before that, I was the ED at Housing Matters. I worked on Skid Row, starting my career in downtown Los Angeles. And I've seen what people experience when they're in crisis, when they have untreated mental health issues, addiction. I've built my career trying to protect services for those who are in need. So when I think about the safety net, a lot of people don't understand what that means. And honestly, the average person, when they need help, they have no idea if the funding is coming from Washington, D.C., from the state of California, from our local government. Like, it doesn't matter. What matters is that somebody is there to pick up the phone when they call. And that's what our safety net is. Whether it's the hospitals and the emergency room, our 911 system, our clinics, our behavioral health services, food services, right? It's a interconnected system that has been put together very delicately. It's very fragile, but it's ensuring that people have the basic and essential services that they need when they need help. And that could be any one of us. We don't know what day that is when we need help and somebody needs to be there to answer the phone. So what's happening right now is that we have a federal administration that is intent on dismantling this safety net. There are decisions happening at the federal level, namely HR 1 or the Big Beautiful Bill, that the concept is to unravel the Affordable Care Act. And I was doing work before the Affordable Care Act, and I know how much of an improvement to access to care came with it. And now we're seeing that there are milestones coming up over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, where people will start losing their Medicaid coverage, their Medi-Cal coverage, and their access to services. And as a local provider network here in Santa Cruz County, we expect that we could lose more than $200 million annually. That's not just the county, that's across our hospitals, our ERs, the clinics, not CBOs doing a variety of work. When people don't have Medi-Cal coverage, they're not paying for the services, but we know that those needs don't disappear. It simply moves elsewhere, it goes downstream, and people become in more urgent crisis. I feel like I'm coming and talking to you, and I'm definitely speaking from a perspective of this is, the right thing to do. But I also am mindful there are some people, even in my district, District 5, who like maybe aren't so concerned about if the poor people have access to healthcare. I'm telling them that if Watsonville ER closes, right now there's a 2 hour wait at Dominican ER. There's going to be a 5 hour wait at Dominican ER. We're going to see more ambulances having to go over the hill to Valley Med or to other places to seek emergency services. We are all depend on a strong and thriving healthcare safety net. So as a county supervisor, I feel like it's my job, but it's also as a human, my job to do whatever I can to help preserve that safety net. And that's what Measure E is all about. To be honest, the counties cannot backfill $200 million. We are not going to be able to do that. But, we do have a choice. Do we want to see the safety net shrink, or do we want to figure out how to invest locally to protect that? And so a couple weeks ago, the board voted to put a half-cent sales tax before the voters in November. It's only for a 5 year period of time, and that will generate about $27 million annually for funds that will stay here in Santa Cruz County and will be distributed to the safety net to help keep our system in place. Like I said, it's not going to replace what is going to be lost. This is about triage. This is potentially, the idea is that it's going to buy us time for, a change at the federal administration, for, Congress members in other parts of the country to see the cliff that is coming and to take action to end up backfilling Medicaid. That's what we truly need. We need the Affordable Care Act to be put back, or Medicaid to be put back, so that way we don't have a long-term problem. So that's why it's a 5 year measure. Um, you know, when I think about the importance of this, I take bringing taxes before our public really seriously. I understand the affordability crisis in this community. People are stretched, but in this moment, I think that our citizens, our residents deserve the opportunity to make that choice, that to put their values, the values that we have here in Santa Cruz County, into play. Because I'm being asked constantly, like, with the federal administration, what can I do? I feel so helpless. What can I do to fight Trump? This is something you can do. You can invest in our local safety net. This is a direct response to what's happening, what Trump is doing to our residents here in Santa Cruz County. And this is a way that we can step up. And, from my own personal experience throughout my career, I've seen firsthand, how valuable treatment services are, how when a family's in crisis and they're able to access a clinic, how life-changing that can be. How important it is that families have food on the table so their kids can go to school with, food in their bellies. And I've seen what happens when those services aren't there as well. So, um, you know, this isn't the whole data presentation. If you want data, come talk to me. I can give you all the slides that Jeffrey told me to leave at home. But this is coming from my belief that here in Santa Cruz County, we don't want people to fall through the cracks. And so I would be incredibly honored if Santa Cruz for Bernie joined us in this effort and would endorse Measure E. I think it's going to take all of us. It needs a 50% plus one to pass. And and I think that in this time it's going to be a lift. And so I hope I can count on your support.
Thank you, Monica, for that presentation. So I'm not sure you really addressed one point. So this is be my question. Um, People generally don't like sales taxes because they are regressive. What efforts did the board make to try and find any other relevant sources to fill in the gaps, the real gaps that you see coming?
Right. It's a great question. And we did spend a huge amount of our time in front of SEIU talking about the entire fiscal picture of the county, because we have a structural challenge at the county in addition to what's happening from the Trump administration. There's two big problems. And so as it relates to our structural challenges, our county is undergoing a lot of change. We are looking at innovations that hopefully bring down costs, trying to be more efficient, really looking at our mandated services. What do we have to do as an extension of the state of California versus what we, you know, what's nice to do. And so we've been going through that process actually for some time, and we're continuing to implement some of those changes. We also, I want to respond to the regressive tax piece because that's something that I paused on this sales tax as an idea for some time because I've always carried that same perspective. People who have lower incomes, people who are poor, are hit harder by percentage sales tax. That's true. But when I became a county supervisor, I was just like, tell me all the ways a county can bring in revenue, whether that's through a property tax, which is quite limited, other, parcel taxes, how else, grants, how else does the county bring in revenue? And sales tax is, one of the very few levers that we actually have. And the good thing about this lever is that it also hits our people who are visiting Santa Cruz County. And, tourism is one of our biggest industries. And so we hope that people come here, they spend their money, and they too can contribute to protecting the safety net here in Santa Cruz County through this half-cent sales tax.
Okay, thank you. Another question regarding sales tax. There are certain limits as to how high the sales tax can go. The Metro and its union managed to get on the ballot for, I think it's March 2028, a half-cent sales tax to support the improvements in the Metro transportation system. So, how are we doing on the limit? Have we blocked the possibility of the Metro getting another 0.5%?
Yeah, both the Santa Cruz measure and the Metro measure have needed special state legislation to go above the cap. We are at the cap here in our county already, and both those measures or pieces of legislation have passed and have been signed by the governor. And so Assemblymember Pellerin carried the Metro item. Senator John Laird carried the Santa Cruz County item. We have mutually supported each other's, and we feel fortunate that we got the support from the state legislature to put this on our local ballot. So it allows our local community to decide what's right for us as opposed to something that's imposed by the state. Um, what else was I going to say? So yeah, they can run simultaneously, but I will say that part of our thinking, going back to like what, I've been asked a ton, why only 5 years? Why, if you're going to go through all this heavy lift to run a ballot measure, why don't you keep it on for 10, 15, 20 years? And part of it is, we have a lot of community needs. Metro is a community need that I strongly support and want to make sure that people can get behind that measure as well. I'm not, I'm seeing Measure E as a direct response to the Trump administration, which is not here forever. And that
We hope.
We are, it's an emergency measure, so it's, for a short period of time, and that we're not placing this burden, this financial burden on our residents in the for the long haul, because a lot of advocacy and hopefully, change across, our Congress and, in the White House, hopefully will mean that we won't need um, this measure for the long term.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Monica, for your good presentation on Measure E. And
Thank you. And I just saw that Supervisor Cummings, I don't know if you've been on this whole time or if you just went on camera, so I'm
oh,
happy to see
yeah.
if you want to add
Okay.
anything.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, glad you made it, Justin. So we were going to offer an opportunity. Uh, I asked Justin first, would you like to speak on this issue? And he said he would defer to the board chair, but that he would make his comment. So if you have a brief comment, Justin, we'd love to hear it from you.
Yeah, and I apologize. I had some trouble logging on, so I didn't catch what Monica had to say initially. But, the one thing I would say is that right now we are going through a really challenging time in our community and within our country. And we're going to see some significant cuts to our social services, especially around people's access to food assistance and medical care. And I understand that there are members of Santa Cruz for Bernie who, for example, don't really like regressive taxes. But the one thing I will say with sales tax is that many people who are going to pay into this are people who are going to be coming from outside of our community. So I always hear people around saying like, um, how can we tax the tourists more? These people are coming here and they're having impacts on our community. Well, this is one of those situations where this tax is going to support people who are experiencing poverty. It's going to support people who are low income. This isn't a tax that is going to support people who are wealthy, and many of us who are middle class. I mean, some of us maybe it will, but it's really going to support those folks who are, dependent upon, SNAP and CalFresh. It's going to be supporting people who are low income and need access to medical care, and it's going to be paid for by everyone, regardless of your income and regardless if you live here or not. I mean, it's different from a housing bond or a parcel tax that is just specific to the people who live here. Sales taxes, one of the great things is that anybody who comes to visit Santa Cruz, if they're buying anything outside of groceries, feminine hygiene products, medication, I think diapers, they will be paying to help support these efforts for us to provide access to healthcare and food assistance for people who are low income in our communities. And so that's one of the things that's really compelled me to support this. And I really hope that Santa Cruz for Bernie can see the value of us, really trying to push for something that, and yes, it's regressive, but it's also temporary. And, that's another reason why I think it's really important for us to support this, because we're living in unprecedented times, and this is an opportunity for us to all come together to support our community. It's going to be impacted.
Thank you, Justin, for your comments and for showing up, sharing that with us. Just a couple of things I will say about sales tax is that some things are not covered by sales tax, like food and medicines and some other essentials. And so if you're out buying some great new item for $100, this is 50 cents, which would go to this tax. Okay. So thank you very much for the presentation, and we've got a tight schedule, so we're going to be moving on. And I would like to invite Pauline Seals to join us to talk about County Measure D.
I will share my screen. And one of the first things I want to say is that Justin has been one of the stars of this fight. One of the things one of the many awful things that's happening, has been happening, is that the Trump administration is attacking our coast. And one of the, in a way, a good thing about this is that everybody loves the coast. Doesn't matter what kind of politics you're into, we all love the coast. So just a very brief review. This first started in end of October. Fred Keeley called a press conference, and various organizations have been strong on this from the start. Save Our Shores, Surfrider, and others. In the first round of where they were about offshore drilling, we generated, I think the final number was more than this. I got this number at some point, but I think it actually was over 300,000 public comments to BOEM, which is the agency in charge, which is Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. And then you would think a normal procedure is that there's a comment period, and then there's a 30-day or more break, and then there's the next phase. Well, the comments were due on Friday. They were back Monday with the next phase. And we commented on that as well, and blah, blah, blah. So this is what they came back with after the 300,000 comments was maps, and all these little squares are places that an oil company could decide to drill. And notice they're not blanked out on our marine sanctuaries. Those are still gridded. Southern California is similar. They don't have as many marine sanctuaries. Justin hired Richard Charter to work on the blue wall, and I'll explain that in a second. John Laird submitted a bill, SJR 12, which was actually enacted this month. Thank you, John. All of our officials have been very, very good and very supportive on all of this. Now, the idea of the blue wall is all these blue cities, counties have said no onshore facilities for oil-related stuff. The idea being we can't prevent what happens in federal waters more than 3 miles out into the ocean, but we can certainly have no support for it on land, making it more difficult, more expensive, and hopefully you'll decide not to bother. So this was set up in the 80s. It's now being reinforced. These are just quick pictures to remind you that oil drilling is horrible. And part two was deep sea mining, because they also want to deep sea mine. And they use this usual crock thing about national security, and it's bogus because, well, first of all, the deep sea mining would be very, very harmful to the environment, and the ocean is very important. 83 countries have signed a moratorium on deep sea mining. It's not needed because newer, safer battery chemistry and recycling. You see, the minerals that they get from this deep sea mining would be similar to what was in the batteries at Moss Landing, which caught on fire. They have been out of date for now 5 to 7 years and are already replaced by better batteries. And I assume they're recycling that stuff from Moss Landing. So there's a big amount of material available. So we don't need the minerals. Go back one. Originally, this is a popular area. Apparently and this is Hawaiian Islands right here. Apparently they've chosen the some American Samoa, which is down here somewhere. So they already came out with a proposal, and the French already objected because they have a sanctuary close by. This beautiful detailed graphic came from Julie Packard at the Monterey Aquarium. One of my friends complained that you couldn't see all this writing, so I've changed it a little bit so that you can see some of this, but I'm not going to go into this in detail. The point is, the entire water column gets messed up. That affects all kinds of creatures in ways that we can't even predict. and it's not good. Recently, another horror was the plan to frack 16 old wells from the 45-year-old offshore platform Gilda off Ventura. And again, a huge opposition was organized. This was on the Coastal Commission agenda for August 13th. Meanwhile, Trump decided to somehow deauthorize the California Coastal Commission by having a review by NOAA. It was not due, and there was nothing. This was just to be nasty. So we organized lots of letters to NOAA to support CCC, to say we need it, and threatening it is undemocratic and unacceptable. So this was part of the August 13th rally against the Gilda fracking. We had 30 speakers, all against, except one company representative. The CCC Commission unanimously voted no. That was a real victory. Now, what's been happening locally, the Santa Cruz County updated the local ordinance against onshore facilities supporting oil drilling and deep sea mining. The Board of Supervisors voted to put a strong measure on the ballot. That's Measure D. Vote yes and tell your friends. It's to protect all this, coastline water, agriculture, land storage, blah, 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 blah. It does so by, okay, here is, we already had something on the books, but it was not very strong, and it did not include deep sea mining. This, which may still be a little difficult to read, I got this from Katie Thompson, wonderful Katie Thompson at Save Our Shores.
Maybe if you have a link to this, it's too hard to read, but if you have a link to it, maybe you could put that in the chat later.
Yes, I will work on that.
Thank you.
I just got it at 4:00, but I can put it on my website. So,
Yeah.
This explains why we need an upgrade to when we already had something along the same lines. So, please vote yes on Measure D and tell your friends. It's our
Thank
code,
you.
going to protect it.
Yeah. Thank you, Pauline. Good presentation on how to strengthen that blue wall against Trump's attacks on California and the environment. Thank you,
Would
Pauline.
Justin like to say something?
Oh, Justin, if you're still here.
Yeah, I'm still here. If I have a quick minute, yeah, this is really critical in terms of what the Trump administration is doing. The Virginia coast has been opened up, and they're going through kind of the process they would normally go through for the offshore oil, but doing it for offshore mineral resources. They've done it for Alaska, and fortunately, no one was interested in exploring deep sea nodules and mining in Alaska. But they're moving forward with American Samoa. They're also moving forward with the Marianas Islands, and just the way that the Trump administration has been attacking the coast of California. There are a number of sites that could be of interest to these groups. And what we're trying to do is get in front of the administration, because if the sales go through and, they start moving forward with, finalizing leases or what have you, we don't want to be on the back end trying to fight it, from behind. We want to get in front of it. And I think that it's really critical, similar to what has happened with the Blue Wall, that before there are even considerations for leasing platforms or whatever, that we are getting in front of the problem and not trying to play catch up. And that's what this is about.
Great. Great. Thank you so much. So I think, not seeing anything, I think we will move on. Thank you very much, Justin and Pauline. So we are now at the point in the program where we're opening up for discussion on the candidates who appeared earlier, starting with Amy Chen Mills of the city of Santa Cruz, and then moving on to Pajaro Valley and then Cabrillo trustees. One person I wanted to invite to speak on about Amy Chen Mills is Rick Longinati. He'd asked me ahead of time to be able to speak.
Oh, thanks, Jeffrey. Yeah. Well, maybe I want to say some things that about Amy's opponent that she may feel less inclined to say. Um, there were some things that Ryan Coonerty did when he was on the city council in Santa Cruz that I was personally very closely acquainted with. One of the things was I was a student to be I was a intern to become a marriage and family therapist in the 2000s, and I was had an internship at the county jail. And one of the clients there in the drug and alcohol program that I was working with was a young man who had a wife and child, and he was going to be deported to Mexico on a drug charge that he was serving time for. And that was not unusual at the time because low-level offenders could be deported if they didn't have papers. This is a guy who hadn't been to Mexico since, or he hadn't lived in Mexico since he was like 2 years old. It was going to separate him from his family, and with no assurance that he would get back. So in around let's see, 2011, Tony Madrigal was a city council member who came. His parents were farm workers. He worked alongside them in the fields in the Central Valley. He um, he sponsored a resolution for the city council to weigh in on state legislation that would allow counties to opt out of collaborating with ICE. And he got 2 votes for that resolution. That was Don Lane and Catherine Byers, and Ryan voted against that. Um, and uh, Tony's Tony's resolution, I'll just read a little snippet from him. He says, uh, without any decision or intention to do so by local law enforcement or elected leaders, the Secure Communities Program, that was the ICE deportation program, has made the city police force into a part of a new immigration enforcement dragnet with no or limited due process protection. Unfortunately, this issue has come back before us, even though California eventually did pass that legislation and the county did opt out of deporting low-level drug offenders. But here we are under the Trump administration. So it remains relevant. And I guess what remains relevant for me is like what in your life background or whatever would sensitize you to what immigrants are dealing with. And I'm not trusting that Ryan has had that kind of experience that maybe I had and other people have.
Yeah.
The other issue that I wanted to speak
Yeah.
to was, is that
Yeah.
okay if I continue?
Thank you. Could you quick wrap it up pretty quick?
Okay. Yeah. It's one other issue, which is Ryan Coonerty was active advocate for University of Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz expansion into the forest north of campus. He wanted to extend city water service so that the university could grow. And that issue is very much with us. The university is planning to grow to 28,000 students. They're planning roads and buildings in the north of campus, a road across the Great Meadow, a new entrance road onto Empire Grade. And I'm not trusting that Ryan will negotiate with the university to represent our interests.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah,
Appreciate your comments.
sure.
Would like to ask if anybody in our audience would have any comments about Amy Chen Mills' race for mayor. And if you do, please raise your hand. Yeah.
Just that my sense of the state of politics in the country right now is we need a real change in what we expect politicians to be like. Do we expect them to be very polished and professional looking, or do we expect them to be like your friend that you're used to having a normal conversation with. And I think the latter is really the direction that we have to move. And Amy represents that absolutely perfectly. And that's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons I have endorsed her and supported her campaign.
Thank you, Len. Seeing no other hands, I'd like to move on to Pajaro Valley Unified School District trustees.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Gabriel Medina. I am currently a board member for Area 3, which is Pajaro, Las Lomas, and the Elkhorn area. I'm actually really excited about our candidates that we currently have. We have some fresh new faces. And let's see, when it comes to Area 1, which I believe was Andrew and Maylin, I think they would both be great for the board, since they both bring a lot of educational experience and knowledge to the area. When it comes to Area 5, I believe that is with Alicia. Alicia is great. I have worked with her before. My only concern with some of her answers, just sounding like a big institutionalist in the sense like, oh, we just need to get along and do these things. But sometimes it requires us to really advocate for our community, and that doesn't always sound nice. So I'll say that. So I have no endorsement for Area 5. When it comes to 7, I am a huge Mads fan. I think he would be great for the board. I have worked on the board with Navarro. It has been a bit tense in terms of the people we represent and how we advocate for them. So with Mads, I think he will bring a much needed perspective that we need right now, which is a parent who has students with special needs and has kind of faced the system that we've been through at PVUSD. So I think he would bring that perspective. He's also a part of several groups, and I'm in full support of Mads, especially knowing that he's also endorsed by the teachers union, which is huge because his opponent has voted actively against them. So I didn't feel like a lot of that was really forthright when we could make the decisions to direct the district to go back and talk with our unions because they're the ones on the ground and their voice really matters. So those were all my comments.
Yeah. Did you have anything to say about Area 4, Danielle Dodge?
Is that with Danny and Heriberto?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I am a massive Heriberto fan. He is a recent graduate, and I think the one thing that we're lacking within a lot of these governing bodies is the student perspective. I've really tried pushing for us to have not one, but 3 student trustees in the area on our board, so we could have more of a conversation on what's happening in school from the student perspective. And that really hasn't happened under this current leadership. So I think with Heriberto, who could bring in that experience just coming out of high school, and just a very knowledgeable person who really has a drive to be in education, I really see him contributing a lot. And on being the board with Daniel Dodge, it's been rough because he hasn't been at a whole lot of meetings. So, we tend to vote for our labor partners, but sometimes when those major votes are there, he's just not present.
Okay. Thank you so much, Gabe Medina.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anybody else would like to speak to the races for Pajaro Valley School District trustees? If so, please put up your raise your hand. Seeing none, I will move on to Cabrillo College trustees.
I submitted a chat concerning whether they were going to vote for whether they would vote for a name change, and they all ducked the question basically. So if if someone won't stand up and say, yes, I want the name changed. No, I don't want the name changed. I'd like to put it on the ballot so that the voters could vote on it. If they're not willing to in some way address that question, I mean, you can't trust anything that they say.
Okay.
If
All right.
if they're not willing to answer that question, how confident are you that they're going to do what they say they'll do? And therefore,
Okay.
I recommend that we don't endorse anybody in that race.
Okay. Thank you, Jan, for your comment. Anybody else to speak on the Cabrillo College trustees issue? I don't see any. I don't see any more comments. So I think that brings us to state offices. We, as Brett mentioned at the beginning, we on most of the state races, pretty clear who's a Democrat and who's a Republican, and you don't need any advice on that. But there's a few cases where the races are officially nonpartisan, and there's one race where there are two Democrats in the top two. One of them is insurance commissioner. We kind of discussed, St. Christopher Burney kind of discussed this race in the spring because Bernie Sanders came out endorsing Jane Kim for insurance commissioner. And we know Jane Kim because she was very progressive supervisor in San Francisco. And then later she was Bernie's campaign manager for one of his primary campaigns. And as you know, he did quite well in California. So I think a lot of credit can be given to Jane Kim for that. Anybody have a comment about the insurance commissioner race?
Yeah, I'll just say I believe we already endorsed Jane Kim, and I saw her when she was in Santa Cruz, and I was very impressed.
Right,
That was
right.
probably 6 months. I'm just guessing 6 months ago. I don't know.
Right. This is a quirk of our Santa Cruz for Bernie process. Of our steering committee has determined that if an issue comes up that Bernie Sanders himself has made a statement about or made an endorsement on or a policy that he promotes, that everybody on Santa Cruz for Bernie kind of joined because of some affinity for Bernie Sanders. So if he says he endorses Jane Kim, then we'll go along with that. But it's on the ballot tonight just to see if you want to confirm our past decision. Okay. Superintendent of Public of Education. It's interesting with this office that I think the legislature has really changed the role for the superintendent of public education, who has a whole lot less power than they used to. So Richard Barrera has some pretty significant endorsements from the California Federation of Labor, and he's running against anti-transgender and so-called family values platform member. And I'm sorry I didn't write down that person's name. If anybody can fill in that detail. Oh, it's on the ballot, so you'll see it on the ballot. Anybody have a comment about Superintendent of Public Education? Seeing none, moving on to the State Board of Equalization. And there are several districts in the state, and we are in, I believe it's District 2, and our leadership team, which put together the the forum here, our research recommends Sally Lieber. The board is a unique publicly elected tax commission created in 1879, oversees property tax assessment practices, sets values for public utility and railroad properties, and does some other things. She has significant support from notably the California Democratic Party, SEIU of California, the California Teachers Association, and the California Federation of Labor. Okay, so that is.
Joe Thompson has a hand up.
Oh, yeah, Joe, go ahead.
I was just gonna add too, if I may, about Sally. She's been great. I've known her for 4 years, and just a really progressive ally. One of the first endorsers for the billionaire tax statewide out of all the California elected officials.
Great, thank you, Joe. Appreciate your comment. Anybody else?
I just want to quickly say that her opponent, John Pimentel, is endorsed by Matt Mahan, and that gave me pause. And also a number of elected officials, but no big organizations or associations.
This is great. We're actually a little ahead of schedule, and we're getting into the California state propositions. There are 14 of them. What I'm going to do is give you a brief summary of a proposition. We'll go through them in order, and then see if people have any questions on those propositions. Okay, Proposition 1, affordable housing bond, which our leadership recommended yes position, allows the state to borrow $11.25 billion for affordable housing. It's a bond measure. $10 billion to buy, build, and rehabilitate and preserve affordable homes, and $1.25 billion to help veterans buy homes. Argument in favor: it would help build more than 40,000 shovel-ready affordable homes that are at this point unable to move forward because of a financing gap. And it will preserve thousands of existing units. Supporters including Democratic state lawmakers. Actually, the California Apartment Association is supporting it, and the California Labor Federation. Argument against, the only argument was that, well, Republican state lawmakers oppose it, and the argument was that, well, it uses veterans in the title, only a small portion would actually help veterans. Anybody have a comment on Prop 1? So I just have to say, historically, you may remember the Democratic Women's Club would host John Laird to talk about propositions, and that was always a great show because of his wit and humor, and I don't aspire to meet that standard, but at least I'm going to try to help you understand what's going on. Okay, moving on. Proposition 2, rainy day fund. Our committee recommended a yes position. It would stabilize the state budget, which sees tax revenues widely varying year to year, making it really unpredictable how much money the state's going to have. So in years with tax surpluses, Prop 2 would direct more money into the budget stabilization account, which would be held in reserve for years that had revenue shortfall. And deposits into the stabilization account would be excluded from the state spending cap, which is also known as the GAN limit. That's a way to actually allow that money to be put aside. Argument against is some Republicans want the money, any surplus money, to be refunded immediately to taxpayers. Any questions or comments about Prop 2? Prop 3. Thank you all for your perseverance. This is already a long evening. Prop 3, continue high earners tax. We recommended a yes position. So there already is a higher tax rate, or excuse me, a higher tax on high income taxpayers, people making over 360,000, which most of the money goes, it all goes into the education fund, and it's about to expire, and this would just continue it. Supported by California Teachers Federation, the Federation of Teachers, and the Teachers Association, two major teachers associations, School Employees Association, Firefighters, SEIU, AFSCME, California Labor Federation. And the only argument against is that the extension of the tax might cause some rich people to leave the state. Any comments on Prop 3? Prop 4, public campaign financing. Our committee recommended a yes position. Allows local governments to participate in public financing elections. Candidates who receive money would have to adhere to strict spending limits. The argument in favor, it minimizes power of big money in elections. And the arguments against is that it would cause some people to have their tax money paying for ads that they don't like. Widespread support among California Democratic Party, ACLU, Common Cause, League of Women Voters, California Labor Federation. Any comments on Prop 4? Moving on, Prop 5. Reform recall elections. We recommend a yes. What you may have experienced in recalls we've done before, on the same ballot you get to vote for yes or no, you want to recall the person, and on the very same ballot you have to choose the replacement. And it's been very confusing and not very democratic, I think. So this new system would split those votes. The first question would just be yes or no, do you want to recall the person? And then there would be a process to elect a new person. Supporters, some state officials, Democratic Party, Common Cause, League of Women Voters, California Labor Federation. The argument against is that it would diminish voters' control over who replaces a governor, although I don't think that's a valid argument. But there's only the election integrity project is the main opponent. Any comments on?
Well, I just want to say that the reason that they're saying that is because the lieutenant governor would take the place of, say, of the governor, and the lieutenant governor is usually very aligned with the governor. That's their argument. And so there wouldn't really be a choice. We'd end up with a similar kind of situation. That's the logic.
Right. Thank you for that addition, Linda. Linda was on the committee that reviewed these, and she studied some of these in detail, more detail than I did. Okay. Now, for some reason, they jumped from Prop 5 to Prop 37. Has something to do with the numbering system. Anyway, it's called abbreviated middle class home buyer loans, and our committee recommended yes. Second mortgage home buyer program and revenue bond initiative. It would establish low to moderate income home buyer down payment assistance program with $25 billion in revenue bonds. It could only be used to purchase newly built homes or newly created housing units converted from non-residential buildings where the buyer is the first purchaser. Obviously, the argument in favor, it increase home ownership. Argument against, it could encourage urban sprawl, and that it's only applied to new homes and, for example, mobile homes or manufactured housing would not be included. No official opponents. The supporters include California Coalition for Home Ownership is leading the campaign. California Association of Realtors is for it, as well as Northern California Carpenters. Of course, they would get to help build the houses. Also, the California Labor Federation. So, any comments on Prop 37? Yes, Justin, go ahead.
I'm not in opposition of it, but I will say that um, as someone who is trying to purchase a home, I just have some serious concern over the fact that I think that with all the current housing laws, this is really going to push towards, you know, demolishing existing single family homes and could, you know, lead to, when they say for purchase, that means like could mean just demolishing neighborhoods and building up a bunch of condos, which are still not as affordable and accessible. But at this point in time, I feel like my generation, the generation behind me, it's extremely difficult to afford to purchase homes, and so anything at this point can help. But I just have some concerns over the fact that it could have some unintended consequences, especially when the
Yeah.
realtors are behind it.
Right. You always got to be careful when the realtors are behind it.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comments, Justin. Okay, Proposition 38, Immunology Research Fund. Our committee recommended yes position. Would issue 4.8 billion in general obligation bonds to fund immunology and immunotherapy research at the University of California and other institutions. The Yes on 38 campaign says California has the opportunity to accelerate life-saving medical breakthroughs. Immunotherapies work differently than traditional treatments. Instead of attacking cells directly, they empower the body's own immune system to recognize and stop diseases. Today, these therapies are already treating certain cancers and chronic conditions. Supporters include the California Democratic Party, California Black Health Network, Alzheimer's Association, the Blood Cancer United. Argument against by Dr. Robert Kaplan, a senior scholar at the Clinical Excellence Research Center, said, as written, this Prop 38 is deceptive. It will funnel billions of dollars to benefit its billionaire donor. Voters should reject a measure that channels half of the state funds to one institution based on arbitrary criteria. So, and there's, besides this one guy, there's no organized opposition to Prop 38. So, any comments on Prop 38? Seeing none, I'll move on to Prop 39. Add voter registration requirements. Our committee recommended a no position. This is Trump's SAVE Act for California. Maybe not quite as extreme. It's based on the argument that there's tremendous voter fraud and we need to restrict who votes. We need to be more careful about who votes. There's in all these years of calling about voter fraud, nobody's ever shown more than a very minuscule amount of voter fraud. This bill would require Californians to show voter ID and before they can vote. And also, if to get an absentee ballot, you would have to supply the last 4 digits of your Social Security card. So opposed are Democratic Party of California, California Nurses Association, California School Employees Association, California Teachers Association, SEIU, ACLU of Northern California and Southern California, Asian Law Caucus, California Common Cause, Courage California, Disability Rights California, Equity California, League of Women Voters, Planned Parenthood, and California Labor Federation. So a lot opposing it. Any comments on Prop 39? Moving on to Prop 40. A Bernie endorsed billionaire tax. We recommended yes position. A one-time wealth tax for state-funded healthcare, education, and food assistance program initiatives. Would levy a one-time 5% tax on the accumulated wealth of taxpayers and trusts with covered assets valued over $1 billion to fund state health programs 90% and food assistance programs and public education 10%. So Congress created a $100 billion crisis for California through HR 1. So to help out the billionaires, they could spread it over 5 years, but it would only be one time. And I guess the one time is because we're crossing our fingers that maybe there'll be a change in Congress. Healthcare workers are leading the campaign to prevent California hospitals and emergency rooms from closing. Some of this is targeted at the same shortfall that local measure E would be targeted at. But as Monica said, measure E would not completely fill the gap. The California School Board Association is opposing it because it's not exempting this income from Proposition 98 mandatory school funding requirements. So it would set a precedent that would put school funding in jeopardy. The California Teachers Association opposes it because they would rather see ongoing wealth taxes rather than one time to assure sustained school funding. And Governor Newsom has argued that wealthy residents would leave the state. The supporters include SEIU, United Healthcare Workers, which sponsored it, and besides Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna, the California Democratic Socialists of America, the Teamsters of California, AFSCME, Unite Here, Local 11, and the California Labor Federation have all endorsed it. Any comments on, Joe, you want to say something about Prop 40?
Yes. My day job, I work for SEIU UHW, which is sponsoring this initiative. It's a great way to save our healthcare system. I don't want to go too much into the benefits, but more as a if Santa Cruz for Bernie endorses this, would love to get you connected with the campaign to volunteer. We're expecting it to be one of the closer propositions, and because of how our opposition has acted by putting forward Prop 41 and Prop 42, which if they get more votes than Prop 40, it'll actually negate Prop 40. So that's one of the things too, where it's not only just about getting over 50%, but getting more than Prop 41 and 42. So just wanted to get that extra info. Happy to talk more about the campaign.
Thank you, Joe. I think Joe said enough that we need to say about Props 41 and 42. They were put on the ballot by the opponents just to confuse the issue and muddy the waters. And their whole purpose is just to make sure that Prop 41 doesn't become law. So if you're in favor of the wealth tax, no on 41 and 42. Okay. Anybody else? Jan.
Yeah, one of the charges that the opponents to the billionaire tax are making is that the billionaire tax would give the state the ability basically to expand it. I don't know if that's really true or not. I mean, that's a big part of their campaign. And then there's also the kind of, side issue of the income tax. When the income tax was first passed, it was only supposed to affect rich people. and only a few thousand people paid the federal income tax. Of course, today everybody pays it, but
right. Okay.
Jeffrey,
yeah,
I'm happy to
yeah.
answer
I'd just
that.
like to know if that charge of the opponent's charge is true, really.
Okay. I had not heard that. Anybody,
Um,
can anybody answer that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it. They often point out this line. Usually they call it page 26, which is a kind of standard piece of the legislation, which gives the legislature the constitutional authority to modify the billionaire tax to make it effective. The opponent will argue that this will allow them to expand it, be a wealth tax on everybody, but that's not true. They can't alter the fundamental concept of the wealth tax, but the legislature could pass a law, for example, to fund audits more or to hire investigators to look at offshore sites, whatever it is. But the legislature cannot expand the tax to anyone who is not a billionaire because it would go against the fundamental precept of the bill.
Proposition 43, currently um, special taxes for a specific purpose require 2/3 vote. Taxes for general government require 50%. Also, um, uh, measures that are put on by citizens initiative can be 50 can have a 50% threshold, whereas if they're put on by a local government, then it needs a 2/3. So this proposition would make all of these funding um, uh, new tax issues require a 2/3 vote. And particularly in Santa Cruz, how one thing that this would affect if it passes in this round is that when the metro tax gets on the ballot in 28, then it would require 2/3, whereas it being a citizens initiative, at this point, it would be 50%. Um, so the supporters of this are basically the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and Reform California, which uh, both oppose any kind of taxes. And the opponents of this include California Democratic Party um, and the California Labor Federation. Anybody want to speak on Prop 43? Justin?
Yeah, I think to Jeffrey's point, there's often times where we organize to support different kinds of tax initiatives, and we gather signatures to get items put on the ballot, whether it's partial tax, housing bond, what have you. Um, I think one of the biggest things to keep in mind too with this is that it's retroactive. So
Oh, I didn't
the
know that.
yeah, so it's retroactive. So for example, the recent affordable housing measure A, the pass, that would be eliminated, and any
Ooh,
other citizens-led uh, tax measure that's been passed. I don't know what the timeline is, but I think Measure G, the sugar sweetened beverage tax, that tax, a number of really important funding mechanisms that we use to fund programs here would be eliminated, and that funding would disappear, and potentially would have to retroactively pay it back. So it's really bad, is all I have to say.
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that insight. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on Prop 43? Thanks for sticking in there. We only got a couple more. We're getting close to the end. Prop 44, clinic funding. Our committee did not have a recommendation. There's a certain category of health centers which are called federally qualified health centers. And this would be a requirement that these clinics would have to spend 90% of their revenue on direct patient care and services. uh, in providing care to low income and underserved people. Clinics that don't comply would be fined. Um, and the argument in favor, so this is being promoted by the Service Employees International Union, United Healthcare Workers, um, and Joe may want to speak to this one. Supporters' argument that these clinic CEOs and executives are spending precious healthcare dollars on excessive compensation or other non-patient expenses. And the opponents say that this is just a ploy for the union to get into better position of organizing the workers at all the clinics. Joe, you want to talk to this about this?
Yes, so this is the other initiative that we put on the ballot as well. I promise I'm not here on behalf of my work, but it is one of those things where we what we see in the healthcare system right now, especially with the federally qualified health centers or FQHCs, is they're spending less than half of every dollar that goes to them. So the state is providing funding, the federal government's providing funding. Our tax dollars are going to these clinics to serve the communities, to serve lower income areas, and half of every dollar potentially is going towards executive compensation, bonuses. One clinic down in Los Angeles spent over $500,000 importing fine art from France. So that's the issue that this initiative is trying to solve. It does that by requiring clinics to spend 90% of their resources going directly towards patient care. Most of the good clinics, there's a few of them that are already well above that 90% threshold. Some of them are spending 97% of every dollar, where some of the bad actors who have kind of caused the situation are spending, 40 cents on the dollar going directly towards patient care when their CEOs are making $2, $3, $4 million per year.
So Prop 45, Chamber of Commerce put this on the ballot to bypass CEQA. Our committee recommended no. It's called Changes to Environmental Review Process for Certain Projects Initiative. It amends the California Environmental Quality Act to expedite environmental review of a defined set of, quote, essential projects, including housing, water systems, excluding the Delta conveyance, clean energy and medical facilities, public safety infrastructure, excluding jails and prisons, and broadband education and transportation, excluding high-speed rail. So the argument in favor is that it would modernize California's outdated project approval process by establishing clear timelines, improving accountability, and reducing unnecessary delays to help build essential projects faster and at lower cost for consumers and taxpayers. And of course, the argument against is the initiative would undermine the public health and environmental protections provided under CEQA and would strip public agencies of the tools they need to protect communities and limit the public's ability to oppose projects. Linda, you're on the line. Would you? Oh, Pauline. Yeah, Pauline, go ahead. And Linda, too, maybe, if you want to speak. Pauline, go ahead.
I was on a meeting about this at 4 o'clock. This is really bad. It wouldn't just modify CEQA, it would basically gut it. And we need CEQA. Possibly it may need some reform, many things do, but this is not it. This is gutting it. And what I learned is that affordable housing is already exempted from this. So their excuse that this will help speed affordable housing is just a flat lie.
Thank you, Pauline. Justin.
Yeah, real brief, piggybacking on what Pauline was saying. We've seen the developer industry trying to just develop as quickly at all costs. I mean, I think that we've seen what's happening with the Catalyst here. We've seen what's happening near the clock tower. We see what's happening up on Seabright. And this would just make it even easier for developers to completely disregard the impacts these projects would have on the environment and just allow them to build at all costs. And there's no guarantee that it would result in increased affordability. It would make it cheaper for the developers, but as I've in my experience dealing with developers and people in the real estate industry, they say whatever the market will bear, which means that they're not going to guarantee that it's going to result in increased affordability. But it will result in increased impacts to our environment. So I think we should strongly oppose it.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that concludes our discussion of the propositions.
I almost, yeah, because I kind of felt like, oh, I'm just here, I'm just observing, but I did have a personal connection with Karen Cogswell, and I was really glad to see her running for the Cabrillo trustee, but she's a great person. I'm going to vote for her on my ballot.
All right. So thank you all for your perseverance, as I said before. One of the best hexagrams in the I Ching I like is perseverance furthers. So that's what Santa Cruz for Bernie is all about. We're still here after all these years.